Yes, guys, welcome to Chasing Green Arrows. We are here to review game week 19, and I'm joined by a very special guest. Dean Jones can't make it this week, but we do have in his place, and look, now friend of the show, Abdul, you've been on a fair few times. Welcome to the show, mate. How you doing?
I'm good, yeah, Johnny. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, game week 19 has been eventful for me, and I think most. I don't know what we've learned this game week. I really don't. I mean, we're learning as we go. We're learning that Harry Kane probably deserves our attention more than he's getting. We're learning that Darwin is missing chances galore and needs a huge amount of shots to possibly eventually get some returns. We're knowing that in double game weeks, no one's safe from a yellow card. Hello, Mitrovic. An injury, loads went Mason Mount as well. That was a tough one for Mount owners. So yeah, it's been a good one. It's been an eventful one. There's still one game left where so much can happen for those that are heavily back in Chelsea and Fulham assets. How's it gone for you, and how's your season going?
I mean, the season is okay, I guess. I'm ranking about 200k at the moment. The game week hasn't gone the best. I mean, I was one of those who held out on Shaw, so I didn't actually bring in Shaw this week. I was close to, so I'm on 45 points with Andreas and Arrizabalaga left. So yeah, I'll end the game week on a red, but at least it can't get any worse, unless Andreas gets sent off as well the next game or something. But yeah, so not a great game week, Johnny. But I think so far the season is. I'm not like too pleased with it, but I'm not kind of distraught with it either.
It's a funny one. Last season, we were all at really good ranks this sort of stage. But this year, when you look at a lot of the top managers and even content creators out there, 200k feels like a really good rank when you're ranking yourselves against other content creators. For example, I'm around 400k, and I'm kind of still above average just. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I expect the second half of the season, with all the doubles that will come, that's where those engaged managers, like you guys who are watching the stream here and now, you're likely to be an engaged manager if you're watching this. That's where we can steal a march on the casuals that spend 2 minutes on a Friday doing their transfer and don't watch YouTube streams or listen to pods and aren't on FPL Twitter, because they won't know about the forward planning. They won't know about the double game weeks. That's really when hopefully we come into our own. And because of all the postponements we've had this season, the Queen's Death, the World Cup, there's going to be more doubles than ever before, potentially. So it's going to be lots of fun. I hope so anyway. Guys in the chat, good to see so many of you. We're streaming in our normal spot. It's nice to be back on a Friday night at 7. Over Christmas, we kind of changed our Mondays and Fridays because of the fixtures, but we're back now. Mondays, Fridays at 7. It's good to see Haley and John and CH, Ralph, loads of our regulars with us. FPL Rivers there tonight. Stephen, hello. As always, guys, get your questions in the chat, both for me and for Abdul. In today's show, we're going to be showing our teams. We're going to be looking at some differentials. Looking forward to that. And of course, we'll have our eye test reports as well. But look, we should probably look still back on the weekend just gone, or the game week just gone. Mitrovic feels like the right call, Abdul. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but knowing Haaland blanked, Mitro still is a good captaincy option this week with his 10 points that you bagged. It's annoying you're not getting fixture 2, but 10 points still feels like a good return, knowing loads went Mount, loads when half the game, 6 out of 11 million managers went Haaland.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, I think it was definitely the right call, regardless of the outcome. We all knew, Gianni, that, the yellow card was possible, especially with Mitrovic. We know he's, kind of a bit of a hothead. He finds it hard to control his temper. And I think the reason he got carded was because, exactly, for that reason was I think he kept berating the referee. I don't think it was. I mean, I checked the reason for his yellow card, which on the apps and that, didn't watch the full match, but it said accumulation of fouls. But it did seem that when Mitrovic made that foul, he did, he said something to the ref, which made him then pull his card out. So yeah, we knew that risk was there with Mitrovic. I'm just kind of a bit grateful he did manage to get that goal before the yellow card. But
yeah, it's a funny one. From being at the game, and it was an eventful one, and I'm sure loads watching would have seen my tweets. Yeah, I'm guessing everyone saw them. I was convinced he was going to. Firstly, when he got injured in the first 10 minutes, he was down for 2 minutes, and the subs were warming up. It looked like his night was done.
Yeah.
So the fact he played on, and then he played on, and he was limping. Like he struggled all game. but he still did what he needed to do and scored a goal and brilliant composure. But then at like the 40th minute, I think it was, or just before half time, he was asking for a corner and the ref didn't give it, I think. And he got in the ref's face and he was so confrontational and probably abusive. And I just thought he's going to get booked. Everyone around me was convinced the yellow card was coming out. And this ref, and it was his Premier League debut, he looked nervous and shy and he didn't get his yellow out. And I said to my mate who I was with, I was like, how's he not been booked? So when he got booked later, whilst it felt like a bit of a soft foul, and I don't think there was an accumulation of too many fouls, it was an accumulation of him just playing on the edge and being in the ref's face. And it was one of those games where you could just tell a yellow card was coming. And at one point, I thought, he's going to get another yellow. Going into the last 10 minutes, I thought he might get sent off, which would have been a good thing for FPL.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just one of those nights. But yeah, it was good fun for me. And I was enjoying my small success because I didn't go Mitrovic. And look, whilst he still got a return, loads assumed that I got a few tweets last night being like, Haaland blanked, unlucky Gianni. And I'm like, dude, just because I didn't go Mitrovic, please don't think that I just went Haaland. Like, it wasn't just a 2-horse race. So sure, my player did blank last night as well, but I was happy with 2 points. All I wanted was from Havertz was to get 60. And Havertz is my captain for the Fulham fixture. And look, he might go and get another 2 points, and I get 8. 8 points, I'm probably okay with knowing who I'm up against. And it saves me the transfer on Mitro, which is a 4-pointer. So I guess I'd see it as a 12 and I'd be happy with it. So I just need Havertz to play another 60 and I'm kind of okay. But last night, Chelsea hit the post and it would have been Havertz's assist. And I was like, I really wanted that to go in. What did you make of that game, Abdul, the Chelsea City game? Because City aren't the same machine anymore, are they? At the moment, they're just not clicking.
Yeah, it was actually one of the games I managed to watch, actually. And yeah, it just, they had most of the possession, which you would kind of expect, but Chelsea had their chances in the first half, which they didn't really capitalise on. They don't seem like the City that, in the first 10 games, where they were kind of banging goals in. Yeah, it just seems like they're kind of, just scraping at wins now. And to be honest, it looks like it's Arsenal that the team that, with City, usually when they play, you just know they're going to, score, at least 1 or 2 goals. Arsenal look like that team now. But the City kind of look a bit, sluggish. I mean, they drew against Everton at home, 1-1, and I think they were quite fortunate to get to win that game against Chelsea. I think the fair result would be a draw, like a 1-1 as well. But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it is a few games. We'll see. I'm still not I still think. I mean, if you look at their stats, they're still the best attacking team in the league. But that's if you kind of take the first 10 games into account as well. If you look at the last, say, 7 or 8. 6 or 7 actually. They have slowed down a bit, but yeah, I guess we'll see. I think it's an interesting point in the season as well now because they've got the possible double coming up in game week 20. It's kind of a question of which do we kind of invest more in their assets, and if we do, is it defensive or is it in their attack?
Yeah, I feel like if City get a double game week, I feel like I have to have triple City, but at the same time, headache over Cancelo, and I think I'm probably going to have to sell him, and I want to replace him with someone doubling, and I don't really want to go Spurs defense. And look, Man City Spurs have got about a 70% chance of having a double. We won't know for sure until after the FA Cup, but I think, and we'll talk about it more when we show our teams later, I'll be moving to a cheaper Man City defense, and we'll get Abdul's thoughts on who we should go to for those Man City defenders. But yeah, the defense has still, I think, since the restart in those 3 games, the expected goals conceded is just over 1. It's like 1.08. Yeah. And it's like, okay, no other team's got anywhere near that with defense. So they are the best defense by a country mile in the league. We surely have to invest in that back line. But I look forward to talking through our teams slightly later in the show. But next up, I think we should probably check out, and look, I'll give 3 names, and then Abdul, perhaps you can give your take on all 3 of them. But I've been doing a little bit of eye test report scouting. So let's check out the eye test. So first up, and look, first couple, differentials. But first up, I just want to give a shout out to, the first 2 are going to be 2 managers that I really like in the league. And when I speak about managers I like from an FPL perspective, they're usually ones that show me they can keep clean sheets, so I invest in their defenders. In years gone by, Tony Pulis, Sam Allardyce, David Moyes at times, or they're managers that I know I can back with attacking football. And look, I'm not talking about the big six here. So at the moment, De Zerbi, Brighton, I'm looking at. Leeds, Jesse Marsh, I'm looking at. Managers that I think, yeah, any given game, your team will go and score 2 goals plus. They've got it in them. And the first guy I want to pick out this week for my eye test scouting is Matoma. And I spoke about him, I think, when I was looking at my unlimited transfers team, but so impressed with him in the World Cup. The only reason I didn't really go there and consider him in my unlimited transfers team was the concern over minutes, because I came back from the World Cup, Abdul, saying I need this guy in my FPL team. Especially after watching him live, I was super impressed. But we had the likes of Almiron and Andreas at that price point, and I had both those guys in. I looked at Matoma's minutes. He had never played 90 for Brighton. Mm-hmm. First game week back, he played 90. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, oh, okay, now I'm seriously going to consider him. And then he's gone and scored braces and goals in both the games since. So he's had 2 lots of 90s, that I think a 77 last time out. But he is a guaranteed starter at the moment, and he's keeping Trossard out the team on the left. So the average position map was also what impressed me. So we can just show you guys. This is from the game the other day. I'll show you guys the graphic here. He is number 22. This was against Everton. They obviously won 4-1 in this game. Look how advanced he is. Like, yeah, it's a back 4, and it's kind of like a 4, almost 5-1 with a forward dropping deep, but this looks more like a 4-3-3, and you can see there like the likes of Pascal Gross, number 13, Solly March, number 7, number 22, wide, but also nearest to the goal. And that's why I like Matoma. He just gets so many advanced positions. And he's a 4.9, 0.6% owned midfielder. But how do we get him in our teams, Abdul? Because it means selling someone also very good, because we've got so many good midfielders.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, though, I think before the restart, it was pretty much impossible. Well, not impossible, but really hard to justify him, because we've got Andreas in that price point, which had double game week, right? So it would have been really hard to go Matoma over, Andreas. But now I do think once the double game week's over, after this game week, I mean he's 4.9, so he's not really a risk. I mean, what we're going to be doing is replacing Andreas, which is our 5th defender, right? And yeah, I think it's a fairly risk-free kind of, a fairly risk-free transfer, especially if you're still going to stick to a 3-4-3. You can play him in those games. Brighton might have a double game week coming up, and if you look at their fixtures, Gianni, from game week 21 all the way to game week 26, they've got a pretty decent fixture on, for attack and returns. When it comes to attack. So yeah, I like him in that price point. I do think he's fairly risk-free because of his price point, and his. In the last 3 games, he's had the highest XG, which is like 1.89, amongst midfielders. So he's putting up the number as well. I know it's a small price point, but as I said, when you're going up, I mean, if he was like 6.5, 7 million, I'd probably say, let's avoid. But because he's 4.9, I do think, it's a good chance to jump on him, after the Liverpool game.
Yeah. And if he's our 5th midfielder, which I think for most he will be, myself included, if you're playing 3 up top, you've got to bench one of those 8 attackers, and it'll be the 5th midfielder that gets benched. But when the fixtures are good, you don't really want this guy as first sub. So maybe at times it will mean you're looking at pairings, and you maybe look at buying him if you think he rotates well with an Almiron, for example, and you go, okay, I can bench him one week and him the next, or maybe a third striker, he rotates well with them. So I guess it's worth looking at, because you don't really want a 4 point. The price point doesn't matter too much. Ideally, it's a 4.5 mid on your bench, not a 4.9. But he feels like he's too good to bench when the fixtures are good, because this Brighton team will score goals. Yeah,
no, for sure. And I do think, you can rotate him with somebody, depending on your team. I wouldn't mind rotating a player like Almiron. I mean, he's had a fantastic season up until now, but he's not going to keep up that same rate of production that he did, in the first 17 game weeks. He still will do well, but I think his kind of output will drop off. So yeah, I mean, even rotating with somebody like like your third forward, depending on who it is, could be great. But yeah, I mean, I think depending on your team structure, depending on what players you have, he's definitely a viable option.
Yeah. Comments in the chat about Even Ferguson as well. John, Darwin to Even Ferguson saves you some money. 8.9 Darwin down to 4.5 Ferguson. But again, like Ferguson is getting goals. And with the injury problems Brighton have, Danny Welbeck, for example, you'd think on paper is the starting number 9. Well, he's often injured. Ferguson looks like he'll get a lot of minutes as a 4.5. So again, this comes down to a question of where you want your money, if you want it in midfield or in attack, and what formation you're planning on playing. But if you are going for that midfield 5 and you want that third forward at that very bottom price point, then yeah, absolute no-brainer that he's the one. I like it. I think if Brighton get doubles, we'll all want either Matoma or Ferguson, depending on how our team's set up.
Yeah, and Ferguson, he's another one who's quite risk-free, because if you're playing a 3-5-2 at the moment and you've got a Greenwood there, as your third forward, why not just get Ferguson? Worst comes to worst, he gets dropped. He has a bad game, he goes back to the bench, and you've still you've got a 3-5-2, so you can just stick him on the bench. So yeah, he's another one, again, due to his price point. It's not a huge risk to take a punt on him.
Yeah. 2 more to come to on my eye test scouting. One is a Leeds player. I've mentioned that already. But before we move on, I just want to mention, because guys in the chat reminded me, and thank you for that, FPL River and a few others, haven't mentioned Gianluca Vialli. I completely forgot at the top of the show. It was obviously the sad news this morning, and just wanted to give a shout out to, a Sampdoria, Juve, Italian legend. And the tributes that we've seen today coming in really touched me, and so many have focused on the human being, not the footballer, which I've absolutely loved hearing some of the Gianluca Vialli stories, and everyone that's worked with him. And I've got some friends that have worked with him, the likes of James Richardson, who's obviously a friend of this channel, have just the kindest words to say about a guy that was taken too soon, 58, pancreatic cancer, I think diagnosed originally in 2017. Thought he was over the worst of it after chemo, and then it came back. He stepped down from his job with the Italian national team only a few months ago. He was a driving force behind Italy winning the Euros. Mancini's not assistant manager, but around the players, around the manager at all times. Mancini and Vialli go way back. They played together as a strike partnership at Sampdoria back in the 90s. And yeah, just a huge loss in the same 7-day period, which we've seen Pele go as well, and obviously only a year ago Maradona. But yeah, very sad moment, but he was absolutely loved and adored by many. Do you have any nice memories of Vialli? I mean, I know you're not a Chelsea or Italy fan, Abdul, but I guess when you were growing up, you kind of, he was one of those players you remember from being a kid.
100%. I mean, I remember his, like, obviously, I don't remember him with hair. I remember him when he was obviously at Chelsea. I just remember his, like, his shiny kind of bald head, and he was, Chelsea player manager. And it's actually a time where I think when I first started watching football, I was at that age. I think I was maybe like 5 or 6, and I just remember him, being fantastic for Chelsea. Again, probably in terms of when he was at, I think was it Sampdoria. I think that was a bit before my time. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's always sad to see anybody go so young, Gianni. Especially somebody you've kind of watched on TV, and you kind of maybe, I think it's probably more kind of touching for somebody like you, who's an Italian, who's probably watched him more than me. But yeah, it's always sad seeing that.
Yeah. It's funny because he was when he first came to Chelsea, there was a lot of players from Serie A coming over, but they clearly identified him, and just before him, Ruud Gullit too, as someone that could not only come to Chelsea and play at the end of his career, but could manage as well. And player managers were a model Chelsea quite liked. It was Glenn Hoddle, Ruud Gullit, then Vialli. But from all of them, it was Vialli that had most of the success.
Yeah.
And he was, I think, a really good man manager. I think players liked playing for him. Calm in the changing room. Probably very different to some of the English managers they would have had before, the more sort of shouty types. He went from a slightly more European model, which was reserved and professional at all times, especially in the dressing room. But I think the players absolutely loved him. So yeah, RIP. And Mark says RIP as well. FPL River met Vialli at Stamford Bridge once. Lovely guy. Leo says about Zola, Vialli and Gullit, the first Prem superstars. They were amazing. And the Mancini Vialli strike force was something else. My dad tells me stories about that. I remember Vialli, by the time he won the Champions League, I think it was in 96 with Juve, Del Piero, Ravanelli was the front three. That was quite something. But yeah, good stories and fond memories from a legend. We'll carry on with our FPL chat. Number 2, I wanted to touch on. We'll come off this screen because I'm going to talk about Leeds now. So I'm loving Leeds, and I think Somerville's caught my eye before the World Cup, and now he's back fit. That's good. A 4.2 midfielder. It's actually Nonto, the 5 million forward, that's really impressed me. And look, I think the two of them combine ever so well. Jesse Marsch is dropping the likes of Jack Harrison to give these guys minutes, and I think there's value in that Leeds attack. Again, it might be that we take a punt on a double game week on one. I don't think we're ready to move there just yet because there's so many other good options. But keep your eye on Leeds because, like Brighton, their attack have a fairly high ceiling and I feel like they're reliable when I watch them. The stats semi-back it up. I always feel like they'll concede, but there's goals in this Leeds team, Abdul. Do you think Leeds are a team that have got too much firepower to stay up? Like, if you're predicting who goes down, do you have Leeds as someone that will be safe because they score enough goals? Because I think that's kind of where I put them at the moment.
Yeah, I think they'll score enough, and I think also the fact that there's a few teams down there who are like much worse, like Southampton, Wolves, Everton, even Bournemouth and Forest. I think those teams are much worse off than Leeds. So I see Leeds finishing above them. So I think they'll be safe. I think they're 2 or 3 points off safety at the moment. But yeah, I mean they've got a great attack. I'm not too convinced on Jesse Marsch to be honest, Gianni. And I never have been. Maybe that's because I was a huge Bielsa fan. I mean, I was a huge kind of Marco Bielsa fanboy. Absolutely loved him. He really kind of. I mean, as you know, I'm a Manchester United fan, so kind of growing up, Leeds was a team I didn't really like at all. To put it kindly, but with his Leeds team, I just loved them. Honestly, he kind of just was just really made me kind of fall in love with that team and how they played. So yeah, I mean, yeah, a good team. Not totally convinced of the manager, but I think they'll be, I think they'll be safe. Kind of FPL wise, I don't know. I mean, like they've got good fixtures coming up. Especially the next year. They've got Villa, Brentford, and Forest. Brentford and Forest are one of the worst defenses in the league if you look at their XGC. So yeah, FPL wise, I guess if you're, the players that you mentioned, like Somerville, you've got Andreas and you've got Mitoma, which you mentioned. Is Somerville, worth going over them too? Gnotto as well. We've got Ferguson there. We've got a third forward in Greenwood also. So yeah, I think for me, FPL wise, they're a wait and see. But I do think they've got good fixtures coming up.
Yeah. Jesse Marsch isn't scared to play the kids. Like Sinisterra's coming back, but I still don't think that affects Nonto's minutes that much because he's playing so well. And when Somerville's playing well, he's just like, no, just fine. Jack Harrison can wait on the bench. Like he's not afraid at all to play the kids. But strength and depth up top, like I think Rodrigo's been very good as well. Bamford's still injured all the time. Yeah. And even when he's played, I think he's had 9 big chances this season, Bamford. He's missed every single one of them. His conversion is even worse than Darwin's. We'll be talking about Darwin very soon. But in terms of the final one, I just want to touch on for eye test. It's actually a Brentford player, and it's not Tony because he didn't play, but super impressed by Brentford beating Liverpool. And Mbomo is someone I don't think I'm going to be picking in FPL anytime soon. However, if the fixtures are there, and we will get double game weeks for teams sometimes in isolation, and when we do, let's say later in the season, Brentford have one, or if Leeds have one, it's Nonto. Brentford have one, you might go for a punt on Mbomo. So just monitor him. Without Tony in the team, he becomes the main man. Yeah. And look, Visser does a lot of the Mbomo running, which perhaps Tony doesn't always do. So you also get the appeal of penalties, which we didn't see against Liverpool. But when Tony's not on the pitch, it is Mbomo on them. So again, just one to monitor if we see Tony missing a lot of minutes later in the season. At the moment, Tony's likely to be back next game week. And from what we're hearing, he's fine to keep playing. But at some point, we don't know about the betting investigation and if we're going to see him out the team for a while. Because if we do, that's when I'll really be seriously considering a player like Mbomo, who is a forward, and I think he's around the 6 million price point. But knowing when he's on pens and he's the main man, and Visser's a great addition, I think that's still a very good strike force. I mean, now the Giant Killers, they feel like no one's safe when they play Brentford. That's so good, Abdul, right?
Yeah, they're just so good going forward. And it's like just, really impressed with Thomas Frank as well. The way he plays, they're quite fearless, which kind of is good for FPL because we know that they concede a lot of goals, but we know they're going to score as well. But yeah, I mean, we know from last season he's another one who needs a lot of big chances to put some away. But yeah, I mean, looking at their price points, if Tony's out for a while, for some reason or another, and I don't, kind of begrudge them at all. But yeah, at the moment, I just think, with Tony in the team, he's just so. I mean, when Tony's playing, I think he is, by far, the best Brentford option and probably one of the best forwards in the game. He's just such a talisman. Nailed for 90 minutes and on penalties as well. And he's got like 12 goals already this season. He's already matched last season's total. So yeah, he's just he's what I'm really looking at, actually, to be honest, Tony.
He served you well last season, didn't he? I know you had him a lot when other managers lost patience and sold him. Yeah. You kept him, and I remember thinking, I wish I'd held on to him for just a couple more weeks like Abdul did. And I remember your rank rocketing when everyone sold Tony. You kept him.
Yeah, I kept him for. I mean, it's another reason I'm quite biased towards him. He done really well for me last season. I had him for that hat trick. I think 2 weeks before everybody sold him, and then he got that hat trick. I can't remember who it was against, but it was in a double game week when Brentford had a single. But yeah, he's just one of those players. He's a glue pick, Johnny. He's a player you can just put him in your team, and for 38 game weeks, and he'll just churn out points.
Yeah. Vissa, loads of people in the chat mentioning Vissa. It's worth noting when Tony is back in that team, despite Vissa being very good, very affordable in FPL, he comes out. And Bomo and Tony are head and shoulders the first choice partnership there. And I don't think we'll see all three of them playing together a great deal. So regrettably, I'd say unless one of those guys is injured or out the team, you should probably be swerving Vissa. And Bomo's far more reliable for minutes. Guys in the chat, keep your questions coming in. Really enjoying following that chat. We'll get to questions throughout the show, but mainly towards the end. 159 of you watching, which is awesome. We do these shows every Monday and Friday at 7. Please do give us that thumbs up tonight if you can. If you fancy sharing on Twitter that we're live, people can come and join the conversation. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're not already. We're trying to get to 4K. We are 3.96K. Maybe we'll get to 4K during this show. So please do subscribe if you're not already. It's about time we show our teams. I know many are here to see your team, Abdul. Let's show our teams in Pimp My Team. Here we go. Abdul's team on screen now. Talk us through it, Abdul.
Yeah, as you can see, Gianni, it's not a great game week. It's a fairly big red arrow, actually. But I think it was a good team on paper. I think the only mistake I made was being a bit kind of hesitant on Shaw. I was really wanting the 2 free transfers going into game week 20 because, we're going to have quite a few of the little game weeks confirmed before game week 20.
Yeah,
it kicks off now, with all the FA Cup games. So we'll know a lot more by then. So that's why I held off on bringing Shaw in. But apart from that, Shaw scoring his third ever goal for Manchester United was a bit of bad luck. I was expecting a clean sheet, and I would have benched Trippier instead. So kind of in my head, I think I made the right decision, but it was just a really unlucky outcome. But apart from that, I was just really disappointed in Darwin. I was disappointed in Mitrovic getting that yellow card, and quite surprised that Andreas came off on the 59th minute also. So yeah, let's see. I guess the best I could hope for this game week now is a Chelsea clean sheet or an Andreas goal.
Yeah. Talk to me about Darwin, because loads sold Martial to Mitrovic, which is I think a move you made.
Yeah.
Loads I considered selling Havertz to Mitrovic. I wanted Mitro in, but the one guy I wasn't willing to sell, or two guys, I wasn't willing to sell Haaland, I wasn't willing to sell Darwin in the end. And I wish with hindsight, it's a wonderful thing. Darwin to Mitro was probably the move, but we see the underlying data. We watched the games. We saw him at Brentford again. So many chances. The big chances just fall his way. He runs a huge amount. He's a real handful for defenders. He actually took one finish really well in the game. It was just unfortunately slightly offside. Exactly. Are the goals coming? Do we stay patient? Or at some point, especially if Spurs get the double, do we say we find the funds and go Darwin to Kane? Because Kane is getting the data and he is getting the points with it. Yeah,
it's tempting, isn't it? I just think, in regards to the question, will the goals come? I do think they will. I think the points will start rolling in as well. It's just annoying that he's a player that he's a volume player, isn't he? He will miss a lot of chances, but he'll get a lot of chances, so he'll score a few as well. But I think now the big question is, if Spurs get that double game week, do we move Darren on to Kane? I think a lot of those guys with 2 free transfers and Cancelo in their team, it's quite tempting to go Cancelo down to, whoever, it could be a Gabriel, it could be a Shaw, it could be, a Newcastle defender, and then, bring Darren up to Kane. But I'd be really low to get rid of Darwin, Gianni, just due to his kind of XG numbers. I think he's missed something like, was it 17 out of his 20 big chances in the league so far. I don't see that rate. I don't see that continuing. I mean, I think he'll start, converting a lot more of those, and he will, kind of, be worth his kind of price tag. But if Spurs get a double game week, it is a tough decision.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a really tough decision. I have the money for it as well if I sell Cancelo, and I think I'll probably end up doing it with a heavy heart, because I do think Darwin goals will come, but this isn't necessarily a case of saying I think Darwin's rubbish or I think Darwin's not going to convert the opportunities. It's just saying I think Kane's going to be slightly better, and you're back in the fixtures. Although Kane's double, if it happens, is as tough as it maybe gets on paper. It's a really tough one there. He plays Arsenal and City. So yeah, it's an interesting dilemma that I think many of us face. And if you're watching this stream, let us know if you're a Darwin owner, if you're making that move or looking to make that move. In terms of other doubles that could drop into game week 20, I think the chances are incredibly slim for other teams. Just looking at Ben Crellin's spreadsheet, I think there's a very slim chance you could see a Man United double in game week 20, which would be Crystal Palace or Leeds getting a double. But again, I think that's quite slim.
I think, I mean, I've got kind of Ben's kind of percentages up here. So there's a 40% chance that Man United play Leeds, and there's a 20% chance that they play Crystal Palace. So yeah, it kind of depends, doesn't it? It's just, I mean, if they get that Leeds fixture, especially, I think you bring in United players. But yeah, so 40% and 20% of those chances. So I mean, odds on that they won't get it, but 40% is still a big chunk.
Yeah, and I think it's 70% the other fixture, isn't it? The one, the City and Tottenham double, I think was always rated around 70. Pretty much, you need no FA Cup replays. So you need
from those 2 games.
Kane is on 4 yellows. It is worth noting, and we've seen what happened with Mitrovic. The yellow cards, I think, will be wiped for Harry Kane after the first of the double game week. So yeah, it could happen. I would like to think Kane's a little bit more level-headed than Mitrovic. We're very aware of the situation, and it is a North London derby, and it can be fiery. But we are quite surprised Kane is already on 4 yellows. He doesn't necessarily, like Mitrovic, pick up that many yellows. This season's been a bit of an anomaly. So I think we're probably okay in terms of risk there. I don't feel like it's the same risk with Mitro. Also, I don't think we'll be captaining Kane next week. We knew with Mitrovic it was a greater risk because captaincy was there. We're all going to captain Haaland next week if he doubles. Big question though, will we consider the triple captainship, Abdul?
Definitely. I mean, it's definitely viable because we do know that Haaland will play those 2 games, right? And it's just about it's about the information that we have in front of us, Gianni. We know that City have got a double. Oh, sorry about that. We know that City will get doubles later on in the season, but whether that'll be around the Champions League time, we don't know the kind of permutations of that. Which games will be in between that. We do know that this double is that it's highly likely that Haaland's going to play both those games and probably play 9 minutes in both those games. So although the fixtures aren't the best, the minutes are there. So yeah, it's one to consider, definitely.
I'm really worried about not going for it and then later in the season, because look, City double again in like a month's time. It's Aston Villa and Arsenal, which is slightly better than United Tottenham, but I just can't. By then the Champions League's a factor. They might think they're out the title race, and he might go, Alvarez needs some minutes. For the Man United and Tottenham game just round the corner, next week we're looking at. They're both huge fixtures because United and Tottenham are still in and around City in terms of place in the table. Arsenal, the gap at the top have just dropped points. Arsenal versus Newcastle. Arsenal themselves, I think, play Tottenham and United in the next 2. They'll think there's going to be more points dropped. For me, that just feels like one where Kevin De Bruyne and Haaland are probably the two City players you can guarantee are going to get 180 minutes. You can never really do that with City attack, especially as the months go on and we get nearer to the business end of the season where Champions League is such a factor, and you think in one of those Premier League games between Champions League quarterfinals, he might go, okay, Haaland's going to get 30 or get 60 or just be rested completely.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's a hard one to call.
Yeah, and it's a Saturday, Thursday turnaround, so plenty of time for recovery. It's almost like, almost a week away kind of thing, 5 days. So you're right, they're going to play 180 minutes each, KDB and Haaland. So when else, realistically, are we going to get a chance to captain Haaland, if he gets a double game week, for 180 minutes? It's unlikely that, as you said, as the season goes on, that we will get that. So yeah, it's one I'm going to consider it this week. I'm going to consider it for sure.
Do you think his minutes against Chelsea will play part of your thinking? Because if he doesn't play the 90 versus Chelsea, or even if he starts on the bench, who knows? Then even more higher chance that he gets the 180 in the double.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen with Haaland this season. I mean, we all kind of thought pre-season, right, that he would get his minutes like heavily managed, but he seems to be like, playing every game that he's fit and, the most minutes as well. So yeah, I don't think it matters much. To me, it wouldn't really matter much, how much he gets against Chelsea. I think, regardless, he will get, close or 180 minutes, in that double game week, in game week 20, if it goes ahead.
Yeah. Oh, Alex, I wouldn't mind about the early kickoff. And it's only in one of the games anyway. So it's not really like... The reason people don't like back in the early kickoff is, one, because some are superstitious, but two, it's if your player blanks, you've got to go the whole game week without knowing that your captain hasn't scored well. Well, this is part of a double game week, so there's still going to be another bite at the cherry. Andrew doesn't think he'll risk it. Do you know what? I've spoken to you today and I've spoken to Praz from Burning Questions. And again, like, you are both managers I really respect, and both have said they're strongly considering it. And again, I was of the same mindset. So there you go, guys. Us three are saying we're not sure, but we're really looking at it. Saw a question about Mahrez and Grealish just when we're on the City chat. If I owned Foden, I'd be selling him straight away. Yeah. I just think it's far too risky, and he wasn't good last night. If he was good last night, I'd be like, okay, maybe I hold him. But going into a double game week, if you own Foden, you think, he'll play one of them. It's a double. I'd still be selling. Because I wouldn't be surprised to see Foden get 2 lots of 30. And going into the World Cup, I think he was benched 3 out of the 4. I still wouldn't look at Grealish or Mahrez either, though. I'd just be swerving all those wide forwards at City. Are you the same, Abdul? Do you think now we're seeing enough Grealish, Mahrez minutes to consider them as kind of a punt, but still maybe over a double game week, 120 minutes?
Nah, no chance. Not with so many good midfield options, that we've got this season, Gianni. I just think the City midfield is I mean, I think the only kind of viable option right now is KDB, and he's a possible transfer in for Salah. But apart from that, I don't like him in the midfield. I totally agree with you on Foden. If I had Foden, I would have given him that Chelsea game, to see, because I did think him and Cancelo were going to start that game, but seeing as they were, as Foden was bought off in 59 and Cancelo was taken off half time, it really, really kind of puts that nail in the coffin. If I had Foden, same as you, I would sell him straight away.
Yeah. Saw a question about Tony flash up. He stretched it off. Usually, was he stretched it off? I think whenever it was, the physio was involved, and it looked like he was going to be out for a while. There was talk he would even make the Liverpool game. So yeah, I'm pretty confident he will be back next week. Check out press conferences and training pictures. But with there being a gap, fairly confident there. It's good to see 187 of you watching. 56 of you have hit that like button. So if any of you fancy hitting the like button and subscribing, please do. We do these streams every Monday and Friday at 7. This is Abdul's team. He's having a good season, around 200k, still with players to play. Let's check out my team, which is on the screen next. I'm at around 400k. I've got still my captain's play this week. I'm fairly well invested, I think, for an improve on that, or an improved rank, a better green arrow, knowing I've got my captain still to play. But look, Havertz isn't assured a start, but with all Chelsea's injuries, you'd expect he gets one. So yeah, let's see. In terms of my team and plans, I think like you, I'm considering selling players like Cancelo. maybe sell Darwin to Kane. I've got the money in the bank to go Cancelo to Stones, Darwin to Kane. That leaves me 0.2 still. So I'm fortunate that I've got a bit of money in the bank that can make that move. And I do think Cancelo to Stones will be a move I make. I just want to go into this double if City get it. I think it's worth having 3 City because it's City in a double game week. And no matter who they play, that defence is elite. And from all the defenders at Man City now, and it's always historically been Cancelo, the one that you can always bank on for minutes. I feel like it's probably now Stones' flavour of the month in that back line, especially right-sided centre-back. Diaz is out. Akanji played left centre-back when he came on last night, and Ake can play it, and Laporte plays it. But for me, Stones feels fairly nailed, and he got player of the match last night from Sky Sports. He got 3 bonus points. Do you think he's the safest of the lot?
Yeah, for sure. I think he is. I mean, I do think he is the safest defender now, but I still wouldn't be, 100%, convinced that he's going to start both the games in the double, just because, especially if Laporte's back. But similar to you, if City do get the double game week, I do think. He is, the defender to bring in. Obviously, there's Rico Lewis there as well. We've seen, Pep, totally he's talking him up. He's, saying all the right things about him. 3.9 million could be too hard to turn down, but I do think I'll end up going the safe option if City get the double. And same as you, probably go Cancelo to Stones. I think I'd give it like a 90% chance that he starts both the games in the double. But, it's Pep at the end of the day, so we can't be 100% sure, can we?
Yeah, I can see a few giving me stick in the chat. They've just realised I've captained Havertz. They're like, and Havertz is on 4 points CFC Blues because that's what happens when you captain someone. They get double points. So look, Haaland should be on 2. That is a slight typo. So Haaland isn't on 4. He's on 4 for most people because I think over half the thanks for that, FPL the Wyvern. Most people captain Haaland. Some went Mitro, but look. I've not been stung by going Havertz by any stretch. I've probably got a good chance of beating those that went Mitro, and almost certainly I'll beat those that went Haaland. So I'm glad I thought outside the box. I don't do it every week, but this felt like a week I could go against against Haaland. I couldn't get Mitro in my team without selling Darwin, who was someone I thought I had to keep. And now I'm not so sure. I don't want to sell Darwin, but I feel like the draw of Kane might be too much. And I've had Kane a lot this season. I had a freemium draft for pretty much the first 16 game weeks. And Kane ticked along nicely, and he's showing that he'll continue to do that. And if I do sell Darwin to Kane and Cancelo to Stones, it does leave me with a freemium again. But I just feel like there's so many good value players in the game, especially now Rashford and Martinelli have become mainstays. At their price points, we don't necessarily need the cash. Usually these guys, Martinelli and Rashford, would be 8 million mids. We'd always have an 8 million mid in our team or 2 this season, other than Saka. If Maddison's fit, we might want to go there. If Hakpo looks good, we might go there. But for the time being, 8 million mids are kind of being ignored. And I'm happy with that because Martinelli, Rashford, Andreas, if we look at some of the other guys we spoke about earlier as well, like some Matoma, there's great value, Abdul. Are you looking at that 8 million price band and not too bothered by it?
Yeah, and I think, the best 8 million, midfielder for me is Saka. And, but again, he's not needed when we've got Martinelli, we've got Rashford, I think Almiron we've got as well, but I think his days might be numbered though. But yeah, there's so many good, midfielder options now at a cheap price. I think that 8 million kind of price point was really talked about, pre-season and, the amount of options we had. But I think now, with the options emerging a lot cheaper, yeah, we don't need it. And we've got, plenty of cash in the bank as well. And I think we're going to have even more cash in the bank now as well, because Cancelo's going to be a sell really soon too. So, yeah, I don't think money's going to be an option.
I should just mention that I've actually got 2 free transfers, so ignore that on the graphic. I've got 2 free transfers, and yeah, look fairly well set if I do go Kane and Stones in. The plan was always actually this week, if I needed to, I was going to play Patterson because Everton actually had an okay home fixture against Southampton. But I don't think I'll be using a transfer there just yet. But we'll be showing our teams next week for the following game weeks. So stay tuned on Monday at 7, likewise Friday at 7. Alex mentions the 8 million mids, and Maddison and Hakpo, certainly 2 of them. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing both those guys back in action. But yeah, there we go. There's my team reveal. We've seen Abdul's. We're going to be answering your questions. We've still got 13 minutes left, so please do keep asking questions and being involved in the chat. We've also got some differentials I want to just get to very quickly. So next up, we've got tips and chips. Cool, good stuff. So, tips and chips, differentials this week. I want to bring out some players that are less than 5% owned. So I'm just going to give you a defender, a midfielder, and a forward. We might go one or two names in each position. And one guy that I can't believe is 4.5% owned. Let's see if the chat can guess it. So he's 4.5% owned. He plays for a team. He's a defender. He's a centre-back. He plays for a team that have kept a ton of clean sheets this season. Arguably, they're in the top 2-3 defences in the league. And he's 4.5% owned. He's absolutely nailed. He plays every game when fit. Any guesses, Abdul? Any guesses? And guys in the chat, let me know. Oh, I think a few of you have got it.
Is it Botman?
Yeah, it's Botman. Yeah. I can't believe he's only in 4.5. Yeah, good guesses. Some says Shah and White. For me, when you're going double defence, because look, we've all got Trippier. When you go double defence in a Man City team or in an Arsenal team, you're worried that if Saka or a De Bruyne or a Foden go crazy, you want to jump on them, but you've already got Haaland and double defence, so you can't. So the double defence sometimes blocks jumping on those attacking players. With Newcastle, I don't feel like going double defence blocks you because no one wants Wilson and Almiron. And outside of those two, there's no other attacking players you want in your FPL team at Newcastle. So by going double Newcastle defence, you're not blocked and they keep enough clean sheets to genuinely consider going double defence every week. Before the World Cup, we all had Pope and Trippier. We've all sold Pope to Kepa now, which was probably sensible, but I still think that Newcastle defence is being neglected. Trippier alone probably isn't enough because everyone has him. When the fixtures are good as they are, I think loads of us will go towards Botman. And look, some might even go Cancelo to Botman sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, he was actually one of my considerations last week, Johnny. Bringing Botman. I thought one of the reasons I did bring Shaw in was because I just thought, after this game, I'm not going to win him, with City and Arsenal next. But Botman was a player, 4.4 million. You could just keep him, on the bench, when you need to, or you can. Amazing player to play as well, good enough for clean sheets. I think Newcastle got the most clean sheets actually so far this season. So elite defense, even now a good option to bring in.
Yeah, I like him a lot. Guys in the chat, I think probably loads of you are looking at Botman. Itzy says he's had Botman all season. Already owned Botman, ridiculous value, says FPL River. But what if Chris Wood goes crazy, says John. Love that. I just feel like it's genuinely something I always consider is if by going for that third asset at Man City, Arsenal or Newcastle, whoever, does it block me on another player within that team? And I look around that Newcastle team and I just can't think where I would need it. Botman makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, you did really well there. I'm going to make this a little bit hard for you with my midfield pick. And I have to give some good clues here because he's 3.9% owned. He's a midfielder. He plays for a mid-table team with a new manager. He actually plays out of position, and he was in and out of a lot of our teams earlier in the season where his ownership would have been really high. If you have any guesses, Abdul, let us know. 4.5 million, 3.9% owned midfielder. He's playing out of position, so he's playing up top for a mid-table team. Any guesses?
I don't actually know, but I'm looking at the I've looked at the FPL website now, so I'm not gonna say. I know who you're talking about now, though. But I didn't guess it. I didn't guess it at the top of my head.
Yeah, the chat got there. Although some went Podence and Greenwood, but loads. I think Alex was first. Shout out to it was John that was first. Bailey and Sashin said Bailey as well. Now loads are getting there. So look, Leon Bailey under the new manager. They want to play defence first, like that's what Emery does, counter-attacking. He wants to go Watkins over Ings because of his pace, and he wants to go Bailey alongside Watkins, again, because of the counter-attack. Leon Bailey is playing for this football team. He cares so much to the point where he missed a sitter against Wolves at the end of the game. I've never seen it in a Premier League game that's kind of doesn't mean a huge amount. I know it's a local derby, but it's not like relegation was on the line or a cup was up for grabs. he missed a sitter, and I don't know if you saw it, Abdul. He just chucked himself on the ground at the end of the game and just burst into tears. This was in a 1-1 draw. So Leon Bailey clearly cares. He's getting a run in the team. The manager's backed him. And he felt like he let the manager down. He felt like he let the fans down. But for me, it's a good sign. He's getting 90 minutes. And it was Watkins that came off for Danny Ings, not Bailey. Yeah. So again, like I feel like there's so many good fifth option midfielders, Andreas and Mitoma.
Yeah.
But Bailey probably needs to become part of that conversation, because when the fixtures are good, and I think Villa are going to be a good team for the end of the season, he's definitely worth consideration again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at his minutes here now, Jan, and like he started the last three, 90, 65, 85. I don't know how long Emery's been in charge. Is that 3 games he's been in charge? Or is it? It's more than that now, isn't it?
I think it was 1 or 2 before the World Cup, was it?
Yeah. So he seems to be getting the starts under Emery. So yeah, I mean, definitely one to look at. But just, I mean, personally, with so many good options in that price point. I mean, we don't usually have so many good options within that kind of 4.5 to 5 million range, but we do this season. He'd probably be a hold for me. But yeah, I mean, he could be great. I mean, we've seen. He is probably the most explosive actually out of the 4.5 to 5 million price range. We've seen already this season, what he could do. So yeah, definitely want to consider, I think.
Yeah, Mark says Bailey finishes like Darwin. Is a fair point. Although, like Darwin, he did have a really good season before he came to the Premier League. Like Darwin was overperforming his XG at Benfica in that last season, and Bailey, when he was at Leverkusen again, was being linked with clubs like Chelsea. I think he'll get. All we want in FPL for our forwards, sure, we want the points, we want the goals, but when they're getting chances, we're usually quite happy. So as long as, your 4.5 midfielder playing up top is getting the chances, you don't expect a goal every game. He's 4.5 million playing out of position. So yeah, look, a few, I think, of Haley saying that she's keeping Bailey. Love that. Emery's been in charge for 5 games. Good knowledge. Yeah, that's what we were thinking a couple of games before the World Cup. So yeah, I think Bailey's definitely one to monitor. And I wouldn't be surprised if I own him between now and the end of the season. We've gone defence, we've gone Botman, we went Bailey in midfield. Up front, I've gone for a 5% owned asset. Any guesses? He's 5% owned. He's playing for a team currently in the top 4. And he's a forward. He's 5% owned. He's got a bit of a reputation for being sick now. He gets a lot of injuries. But when he's fit, he's a really good FPL asset. And I'm shocked that he's 5% owned. I thought it'd be way higher. Loads saying Watkins, Alvarez, Martial. Here we go. Alex got it. Loads saying Martial and Nketiah. It's Wilson. Are you surprised that? I am. 5% owned for Callum Wilson.
Callum Wilson. Well, that's.
I would have said 20. I would have said 15.
Yeah. I guess a lot got rid during the World Cup. And then obviously he was injured when he came back as well. So, but yeah, still really surprised at 5%. Because he was quite highly owned before the World Cup.
Yeah,
he's doing well, but yeah, I mean, when you're right though, when he's fit, I've said this a lot as well. When he's fit, he is the best third forward option in the game by far. I think
I feel like you've owned him quite a bit over the years. I feel like you're quite loyal to Callum Wilson. He's done well for you, and you clearly rate him.
Yeah, I mean, when he's fit, I mean, I've usually got him as my third forward, pretty much. But admittedly, which isn't a lot because he is quite injury prone, but. Yeah, he's just one of those where it's such a shame because he is, not only a great FPL asset, but he's a great player as well. Got called up for England as well, which proves that. But yeah, so I guess we'll see how he fares from this injury now.
Yeah, he's definitely I consider him an elite finisher when we're looking at Premier League forwards. Like he never feels too wasteful for me. Feels like he's very efficient with his shooting, which is excellent. And as Leo summarises, top scorer, but fitness problem is an issue. But with players like Maddison and Wilson that get injured a lot, when the rewards are high enough, and they are for players like Maddison and Wilson, I am always okay selling them because we do get a transfer every week. Yeah. So it doesn't put me off ever going to Wilson when he's fit and firing, because a lot won't ever buy him, which is perhaps why his ownership's only 5%, because they go, oh, he's always injured and I'll have to sell him in a month. But that's okay if he gets you 30 points in the month and you have to use one of your 4 transfers getting him out. So I'm always okay with that. Is that your take, Abdul? Because some are really cautious about injury-prone players. Martial's another example.
100%. I mean, like as you said, we've got a transfer. So, when an asset is, that good, when they're fit and firing, like the likes of, Wilson or Maddison or, whoever, it's 100% worth getting them in, while they're fit, because we can always take them out. It's not a game that we've, that we have to keep them in for the rest of the season or over a certain period of time. So definitely.
Yeah, good stuff. That draws us almost to a conclusion. But before we go, I want to ask Abdul a couple of questions myself, and I hope you guys in the chat will enjoy these questions too. Abdul, I want to ask you about your plans in the next couple of weeks with your moves. I don't know if we can just show Abdul's team once again for those that are perhaps just joining. But Abdul, your team is in a good place. You only have one transfer No, you do have two transfers this week, don't you? Because you didn't go for the Shaw move. Where do you think you'll end up going? Like, as an early steer, what are you looking to do? Like, you've probably planned a few different scenarios out with those two moves. Who is it you're looking to get rid of, and who is it you're looking to bring in?
Yeah, so I think at the moment, James is top of the list to go. I think I'll probably remove him for. Excuse me. I'd probably say. I mean, at the moment, I'm thinking. Before I did think that I'm going to get rid of Cancelo, but I just think with James being a high priority, I might go James to a Stones and double up on that defense, and
nice.
Cancelo, and then ignore KDB, but also at the same time, I might just do a James down to a Botman or a Shaw, depending on the double game week, how that pans out. And do possibly a Darwin to Kane. The only thing that's put me off Darwin to Kane is that I know that I'm not going to captain Kane for that double game week. It's going to be Haaland if it goes ahead. But Kane, I think if I get him in, he'll be one for the long term. We've got a player there who's it's kind of it's a bit weird how how lowly owned he is as well. He's got 15 goals and like 4 assists this season, which is unbelievable. I think it's the best start to the season he's ever had in his career. Up to this point. And he's pretty much highly ignored by a lot of the big managers. So he's a long term option for me. So that's kind of where my head is at the moment. I could possibly take a hit as well, Gianni, if I want to move. If I want to remove Cancelo, that could be an option as well. I could do James, Cancelo, and Salah out and bring in KDB as well, KDB and Stones. So we'll see. But it's just it just all depends on on what kind of double game weeks are announced.
Yeah, and what you see in the FA Cup from City and Liverpool as well, because if Salah goes and scores big, or KDB scores big, or Darwin scores big, it will affect all of our thinking. So for those of you that have got transfers, guys, the biggest advice we can give is do not even worry about price rises and falls. There won't be too many. There's not a huge amount of activity in transfers now. Wait until all the football's been played. We know about the double game weeks. We will get announcements this game week, we genuinely believe. And we think we'll get it not just for game week 20 doubles, but we'll know more about doubles in the pipeline as well. So just hang on until closer to that deadline, and we'll talk you through next week the steps. But hold those transfers. Thank you very much, mate. Really enjoyed that. We've got around 200 of you watching. Before you go, if you fancy hitting like or subscribing, we do these streams every Monday and Friday at 7. But likewise, if you fancy dropping a comment at any point, Abdul and I will be looking at those comments tomorrow, so we'll try and give you some answers if we haven't got to your questions tonight. But if you had a good time, mate, we hope to have you back in the not too distant.
Yeah, no, definitely. Anytime, guys. Thanks.
Good stuff. Well, for now, guys, thank you for watching. He's been Abdul, I've been Gianni, and we've both been chasing green arrows.